Write my name in ice. Don't argue with these ladies. I just raised my price.
I pull up in my two-seater. My mama was a savage. Hey, I'm a...
Wait.
What'd you get? You got it from Linda.
I was about to say Linda. My mama, listen. I know mama. Anyway, hey y'all. We already hype out here in these streets.
Listen, you don't have a hype woman. Listen, good vibes only. If you ain't, you know what? Let's start the show.
Let's start. Okay. Hype out here in these Good Girl Podcast streets. You guys, welcome to the Good Girl Podcast. The Good Girl Podcast, a place where we have confessions, where there is freedom, where there is healing. The great thing about the Good Girl Podcast is it is really about getting to those uncomfortable truths that produce that type of healing. And this week specifically, we're going to talk about something that I know every woman and man for that matter has dealt with, and it is insecurities. But we're going to focus on the truth of being an insecure woman, how it comes out, how it plays out, what we can do about it, because society is not set up to promote, to empower, to push different types of women. Like I don't want to go too deep. But because we live in a capitalistic society, oftentimes there's one type of woman that is upheld as the standard, right? Whether it's in body shape, hair type, profession, it's typically one type of woman. So it's very polarized, very segmented. And so that does not allow the varieties, the diversities of thought, of shape, of just who you are, of culture, to be accepted and to be empowered and to be lifted up. It doesn't allow for that. So unfortunately, what that creates, the byproduct of that is insecure women. And so we're going to talk about that today. And hopefully you'll get some healing. Y'all see me rubbing my stomach. You get some healing. How you feel about that, Danny?
I feel real good about
it. Before you see, she real calm now.
I feel real good about it.
we was talking about this before, and she was like, people need to get healed, because we have a couple examples.
Listen, I feel real good about this podcast episode, but I'm tired of y'all. And so I'm tired of y'all. I'm tired of y'all out here bleeding on folks that didn't hurt you. And, I just want everyone to do their own work. So I'm ready to dig in. I'm ready to dive in.
That's all it is. So I think we've all have dealt with insecure women and insecure men. And I know we're focused on women, but I don't want to leave the men out, because there's also this misnomer that men are insecure. That they stuff together and they're cool with how they look, how they show up. That couldn't be further from the truth. And when I say we've dealt with it, personally, I know I've dealt with insecurities, and still working through some of them, but I think they have been properly placed now. And I understand them to be insecurities. I understand how they manifest. I understand how they show up. I know how to check them. And also because I got a friend like Danny, she's like, don't do that to Cameo. Don't do that to her.
My line is, oh, don't do my friend. You ain't gonna do my friend. Not today.
Yes. And then also, when we have friends, kind of like Danny's experience, where their insecurities show up. Sometimes they show up in conversation with someone being vulnerable. Other times I think they show up as a projection and othering people, demeaning people, just bleeding all over people. So Danny, I don't know what your experience has been with men or women or folks who are insecure.
So I've had the full gambit of experiences, right? I have been an insecure woman, and I still, like all women, go through my states of where I feel insecure about certain things. And when I notice that it is showing up in a way that is detrimental to me in any way, shape, or form, I try to address it there in the moment. And so I try to make sure that I process through what am I feeling and why am I feeling that way? Like if something comes up and it seems like to be out of character, or I seem to be triggered, or it's just like, am I feeling insecure about being in this space? Am I scared? Am I fearing rejection? Because it's all rooted in rejection. But for a lot of women and a lot of people, they don't have a safe place to be vulnerable and transparent because their insecurities have been weaponized against them. And it just creates this cycle where hurt people end up hurting other people. I've also been on the receiving end of it from other women and from men as well. When men are feeling insecure, they tend to attack women more so than they attack other men. Sometimes they'll attack other men. And I know we'll get into some of this a little bit later in the show, but sometimes they tend to attack, other men in their masculinity, and women do the same thing as well. You have women who, they will try to demean, belittle, find a flaw, find something to harp on to quote unquote lower another woman's rank in the room when they don't feel like they can dominate the space. There's a saying that says when people can't control you, they will try to control how other people see you. And it's all related to their own personal insecurities that they're projecting. We've all experienced that.
Yes, I've seen the latter. It took me a while to understand and process what was really happening, but I've seen the latter more recently than not, when the idea of someone controlling that perception someone has of you. And the thing about it, Danny, is so slight. It's so slight. It's just one sentence where it may cause you to question, because what happens is you tend to trust that person in the room, or that person typically holds power. Like you said, it typically dominates that space, whether it's with the friendships, whether it's with what I call the pretty privilege, whether it's with a position they may hold that everyone in the room respects, right? Or a title that they hold. And so people tend to listen to them. They are a person of influence. But when they can't control that person, they cause everyone else to call into question something about that person, whether it's, like you said, their masculinity, whether it
credibility,
is all of it,
credentials,
all of it. And so you said something earlier too about weaponizing, your insecurities. Can you unpack that a little bit?
So when you have been vulnerable or transparent, or when someone has had the privilege of observing you in a vulnerable place, and then you show up in a room, it's the I remember when. It's that nasty thing, right? You ever recognize someone, who may have had a past, or may have, we all have past, right? Or may have just acquired some accomplishments or some status, and someone is honoring them or giving them praise. And someone feels the need to go out of their way to overtly, because you said subtle earlier, and it's most of the time it's overt, to overtly express that they knew you when. They knew you when you were having hard times. They knew you when you were doing less than great things. They knew you. Oh, we see you now. Okay, the come up is real. The glow up is real. You know what I mean? Or it can be somebody as simple as, the more Cardi B has evolved with certain things that she's done, it's like, we still want to treat you like you are on the pole, even though that's why she came out with a song saying, I don't gotta dance, I make money moves. Like, that was her breakaway to say, like, when you see me on the streets, like, I don't mess with you. You know what I mean? I'm a boss. You a worker. Like you try to come for me. You were saying all of this stuff, about me, because now I have come up. But you want to keep trying to hold me down. You want to keep trying to reference a place that, I might not even have any shame about, but it didn't fall in line with respectability politics. And so you attempt to shame me.
Yeah.
You attempt to attack me in order to discredit me and to take the attention off of me in the room so that you don't feel less than, because that's really what it is. It's a projection of you feeling insecure. So you feel the need to try to find something to minimize or diminish someone else's accomplishment in the space.
And so what I think needs to happen, like since we're talking about insecurities, and I think you essentially in this space just gave the clinical definition, right, of what it means to be insecure and what happens. But what do you really do, Danny? Because I don't know if we have that that inclination. I don't know if we have that something inside of us telling us to pause when that insecurity rises up, right? When, you know, Cam the Stallion walks in the room and it's something about her that makes you go, ugh, or it's something inside you that makes you want to shrink, but instead it comes out in a different way, right?
Absolutely. It's all about the competition. We've been groomed to compete with each other and to parade, you know, our accomplishments around each other. But in the back of our mind, you know, we're playing, you know, that Juvenile song where he's saying it's kill or be killed, wet or get wet, bust or get bust on, move a chest or lose a chest. Like it's that mentality of it's always a competition. It's a pie mentality. It's a scarcity mentality where people fight over resources. And those resources might be opportunities. Those resources might be other people. Those resources might be networks. And people feel like if you're getting attention, that's attention that I'm not getting, instead of this inclusive mentality where it can be both and, not an either or. You know, people want to be very black and white and draw a line in the sand. And it's just like, well, if you're paying attention to that person, then that means you're not paying attention to me. And it's like, if this is, that might be true. They may not be paying attention to you, but that doesn't mean that that is now your opportunity to go try to diminish them. Are you good with getting what you're supposed to get when you're supposed to get it and it's your time? Because you feel away when somebody is quote unquote hating on you, or are people really hating on you, or is that a personification of your insecurities? Because we could talk.
That's a whole nother conversation, because like I don't know where this idea of hating came from, right? And how people experience it. But that has been my perspective, that that I don't think people are really hating on you. I think it is insecurities.
Most of the time, it is a personification of your
reading into someone's behavior, and it is confirming these thoughts that you've had about yourself.
It's called a what? I've talked to the
self-fulfilling prophecy.
But a confabulation, the story that you confabulated in your head and you told yourself because you started feeling uncertain, since we're going to go definition, uncertain, anxiety about yourself, or where you start to lack confidence, or where you feel vulnerable, or like there's danger or threat to something that is of value to you. That's an insecurity. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, the thing, I don't want us to negate that society feeds this, right? When we talk about competing, right? And I know you just mentioned one song, but like literally everything we do, competition is built in it. From school, from being number one, number two, the grades you get, the fact that you have to be better than the next person, to even the simple memes that we experience on Facebook from one gotta go. And so you have people competing to which one is better, to who wore it better. All these things are competition, when those are, though, and I need a different phrase for it, but it's not real, right? Nobody has to be better than the next. Like I don't, in based on whose scale, what barometer. So like when they say, oh, well, you had the most sales for records. I'm staying in the space of arts and entertainment. So she was the better artist. To who?
To who?
What type of machine did she have behind her? Right?
It's
what was
all
happening?
Subjective.
So
you just did a video about the grace of God. When it's somebody's time, you cannot negate the grace of God. The grace of God can have somebody seeming like they're better than what they are just because it was their time. But we shouldn't be rating anyway. Like, I literally just said, someone just compared Kanye and Drake to each other. It was just like, I feel like this one is better than this one, and this one is better than this one. And I was just like, you know, both of them are exceptional in their own right, and they both do different things. There is no comparing really Drake and Kanye. Maybe as an artist, they both are lyrically sound, but Kanye is a producer, and his catalog is more extensive than Drake's in that regard. Drake don't produce like Kanye produces. That's not a, you know what I mean? You would have to compare him to like a Puffy or something, but why are you even comparing him? Just let them stand alone. I said, here's the other thing. Drake also isn't struggling with overtly struggling with a mental health disorder. You know, I just like, so this compare and contrast, why can't we just both honor both of them for who they are without having to create this, you know? And I despise, for the record, the one gotta go. I despise those. I never do them. I never participate because actually nothing has to go. And I'm a both and type of person. Give me sugar in my grits and give me my shrimp and grits. I'm a both and type of person. I want some butter and sugar if I'm just gonna have grits by themselves. I'm gonna eat shrimp and grits all day if you put it in front of me. So what if people like one or the other? It's not like just.
I think that's a fun game. But no, I get what you're saying. But it goes back to my point that salt belongs into grits and not sugar.
First of all,
I'm sorry.
You are not from Michigan. Where did you come from? In the North, we eat sugar in our grits.
We do not. Yes, we do. For Northerners. No. Sugar belongs in cream of wheat.
And grits.
No, in oatmeal.
And
that's
grits.
It. No. This podcast is over. It's like, I'm kidding. But wait, I think this proves the point that competition is so deeply woven.
It is.
Into our life. We don't even have a mechanism internally to make us pause when we're comparing things that necessarily shouldn't be compared, right? That aren't in an official quote unquote competition, right? You can be in a baking competition. I get it. You want to see whose sweet potato pie is the best. And I think my grandma's and you think your auntie's is the best. Still subjective. But I think there has to be a pause. And we have to stop and ask ourselves, what's really happening when I feel the need to attempt to discredit someone else, right? When I feel the need to one up someone else. And I don't know what that pause is other than just being aware that this is going to happen.
I think that it's very important to talk about, you know, our culture that we've talked about on other podcasts where it's like, I can't be no punk. You know what I mean? It's like there's always this need to show and prove. And so to get to the place that you're talking about, it would require one, a level of humility, but I'm going to use this word, but change it, right? That one be conflict avoidant. Well, conflict avoidant is the term that you know, right? And when a person is conflict avoidant, they can be labeled as scary. They're a punk. They're a pushover. They don't have a backbone. They don't have a spine. So that's a person that can be taken advantage of. So we're constantly trying to outlive and prove, like, you know, it's this whole like, you know, pray with me, don't play with me. Like, it's this whole need to say, like, yeah, I'm soft, but I'm hard. Or yeah, I'm, you know, it's this, I
know killer, but don't push me.
I ain't no killer, but don't push me. But it's the glorification of that, yeah. Right? Where you got to let everybody know not to try you, right? It's that where you let go of that piece, where it's your need to let people know that you aren't to be tried, where you don't care if anybody thinks that you're a pushover. So the reason why I said I was going to change it, I'm not conflict avoidant more than I am for being a conflict minimizer, right? There's a difference between being conflict avoidant and being a conflict minimizer. Anything that produces conflict, unnecessary conflict, why is it a part of your life? And there's a part of maturity where you get to a place where it's like, there are certain things that I cannot even give brain space to. I don't have I literally don't have the time. This is where people will say stuff like, they'll weaponize you trying to be above it and say, oh, so you think you better than us? And it's like you are now internalizing this. And the problem isn't that I think that I'm better than anything. The problem is you feel like you're less than when I don't decide to participate in the foolishness.
Yeah.
This is foolishness. I am attempting to minimize conflict. I'm not being conflict avoidant. It's not about me being scary, but so what? Create your own narrative. So what if you think I'm scary? So then you feel even more need to escalate more, to agitate more. Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen someone? I'll have a transparent moment and I won't like get really, really into it, but like the worst and biggest fight, and what I would probably say the worst thing that I feel like I've done to another human being, all happened because I was a conflict minimizer. And that was perceived as being conflict avoided and scary. And that person literally said, Danielle is scary. I knew that I could hold her. And this turned into a very unfortunate situation for that person. And so it's going to be really hard to get to the place where women and men alike are okay without projecting their insecurities on the other, because there's always people around, depending on the environment that you're in. Now that's why you got to separate yourself. But in certain spaces, there will always be somebody around that's going to call you out, that's going to call you a punk, and that's going to call you scary. And you got to be willing to sacrifice being humiliated before people who are non-factors. Okay? Being humiliated in front of people who at the end of the day really do not matter when it comes to your purpose and destiny and fulfilling the thing that you're supposed to do in this life and becoming the highest and best expression of yourself. You are going to have to risk allowing those people to think whatever they want to think about you, while you stand in your truth and be who it is that you are supposed to be at your core.
I think I want to pause here, because I don't know if we really understand how difficult it is to do what you just described, especially in the culture that we live in, the culture of being Black, of being a Black woman, where our pride is a thing we hold on to. And there is no way you're going to take away my pride, especially in front of all these people, right? You're not going to, when there's an audience. And the thing about it is, there will always be an audience. There will always be a person present who's going to try you, who's going to call you out, who's going to project their insecurities onto you. And you know, deep down, listen, I'm speaking from experience. You know, deep down in your heart, you have all the power to gut, gut them. You know you have it. And you do have to humble yourself, because you know you look like the punk, because you're gonna be like, yep, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna take it. And that is I don't even think difficult is a word, Danny. It is another level of awareness. It is another spirit. It requires a different level of maturity.
Mental gymnastics.
It requires a lot in order for us to navigate that space, so we won't lose something that is very near and dear. Because if we're honest, that's really what's at stake. It's not our pride that's at stake. It's what we are connected to that's at stake. Because if that person calls you out and you respond in a way, people not out here for play,
You don't want to lose respect in these spaces, because what happens is, it's like, someone else then feels like it's so unfortunate that people really buy into this culture of bullying, that they're always looking for a person of opportunity. And you have to decide for yourself, am I willing to throw away everything? I went and laid on the altar and prayed that girl lived. And I could have not been here right now. Mm-hmm. but I was the person in the situation who was being bullied. You know what I mean? And it was all because someone who I didn't know, who I had no connection to whatsoever. We weren't dating the same guy, nothing. Like, we had zero connections. She had an issue with a friend of mine who wasn't even there. But I had a reputation for always de-escalating things in these spaces. And so I was targeted. Nobody wants to walk around with a target on their back that says bully me, especially in communities where people are functioning in survival mode. So they're desperate and they will do anything. People will take you out when they are scared and insecure. You know, we're talking about our social circles at the level that Cameo, let's be very clear, and this is not to sound condescending or whatever. Cameo and I circulate in mostly some more upper echelon spaces. And that's just by way of, you know, the degrees we've acquired, have put us into social circles and spaces where there are people who have more to lose. And so their level of thinking and mentality is just going to not be in places. But we also have other communities that we can go to that we're connected to, you know, with regard to family or other spaces where people are certifiably hood, don't have nothing to lose, and will put you at risk of unraveling everything if you show up in those spaces and decide that you ain't gonna be no punk today. Because somebody trying you, because, oh, little baby Jesus then showed up today, and then now I'm on the phone trying to talk Killer Cam off the ledge. Like, listen, okay, Killer Cam got to die. We got work to do, okay? All right. Don't choke nobody today.
I'm growing. I'm moving.
You're doing great. We've had less of those conversations in the last 24 months than we've had in the last 5 years.
So we're having this conversation because there are two roles, I think, that people play. You are either the insecure person, or you are the person where the insecurities are being projected onto. And I think you can respond, you know, any type of way, right? And we're trying to get you to give you tools to navigate these spaces. And it's not as simple as you think, right? Because I think there was probably a point in time in your life where you were the insecure person. There was a point in time in your life where you were the agitator, right? Or you didn't even realize what was going on. And I think a lot of this also has to do with our identity, right? So why are we insecure in the first place? I think it's because we really don't know who we are. We don't know what we have, or we're not connected to our purpose. We're not connected to the source. Because if we really knew that, if we really knew our calling and the people that we are called to affect, the people that we are called to serve, we would understand that there is no comparison, but that you're just working in a different part of the garden, right? That maybe you're just a different tool, or you have a different approach. And this is why you connect to those people. And I think that is also something that's also part of the healing process, that Danny cannot do what Cameo does, right? And Cameo may shine in one space and shine brightly and flow effortlessly. But there's also a space where Danny flows effortlessly and shines bright. But that is no need for me to be like, oh, well, let me, well, she ain't all that. Well, this, because the thing about it starts to me as a little voice when you're trying to cut somebody down ever so slightly. Instead of like, oh, she's really great at that. How does she do that? Or even thinking about where you're really great at. And so I want to transition into the 4 things, at least I think, the 4 indicators of being insecure and why. So number 1, and we talked about some of these a little bit. Number 1, I think it is controlling with your privilege, controlling the environment with your privilege. And when I say your privilege could be the relationships. It could be your position in the community. It could be that you know that you are pretty to most, or you meet the Eurocentric standard of beauty, and you believe that you own a room when you walk into it. And so you attempt to control it with this space when there is no need to control anything when you get into any space. place. You just exist and you be and you do. You do you. And so I think that is one reason or one indicator of being insecure. I don't know if we always connect control to insecurity, but that is for me at least a very clear connection.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of people, when it's interesting. I just talked about this in a mother-daughter relationship earlier today, where I said, when you feel insecure or vulnerable, or like aren't able to be in control of something, then you start to sabotage. And so it can be like you said, you walk into a room, and Cameo is in the room, and all eyes are on Cameo. Oh, well, let me get up and go walk around so I can take some of the attention back. Or let me, or Cameo is new in the space. This is my domain. This is my territory. I'm the gatekeeper in this room. And I feel threatened because Cameo walked in. And for those of you who don't know, Fran is pretty much 6 feet tall. And she, if I got anything to say about it, gonna have on some heels, and she gonna be in the rafters. And so she gonna be looking like a tall, fine specimen of a lady when she come into the room. And so she's gonna be an attention grabber, whether she tried to or not, just based on her height alone, right? But if she walks into a room with some insecure women who feel like they're the gatekeepers, then they start to be catty with the other women and the other people in the room and in the community. And then they try to ice you and block you out. I've experienced that a lot. And you experience this stuff a lot in small communities. One of the reasons I got out of Lansing, I'm going to be very honest about that. Very closed-minded, very small, and where people
don't do the elbow like that.
Listen, let's just be honest about Lansing. A lot of people think that they have acquired some upper echelon status and, think that they're gatekeepers and mean girls, and you have done nothing but show up in a room and be pretty, and they felt insecure. And so you've been slandered. I've dealt with that, where people have slandered me, discredited me, and didn't even know me. And then people get to know me and say, oh my gosh, you're nothing like what, I was told, or what's, then they try to be careful. And so sometimes I wonder, or I used to say, yeah, did you feel free to go back and apologize for, go back and correct, the slander that you were out here, because you were out here projecting.
Yeah. And just to bring a little balance to that, I know, and let's be clear, people have different experiences in Lansing. I haven't necessarily had that experiences, but I don't know the circles that you float in here in Lansing, right? I don't know the connections you had in your community. I'm just saying that because I've had a great experience in Lansing, right? I've gone into places and I've been welcomed very much so. But I also know, let's be clear, I also know it's because I've always had
Because you're from where?
Privilege of my position, the privilege of my position, whether it was my job, working in news, right? And so people ain't about to come for you. You on the radio? You're a producer? Oh, I saw you on channels. Like it's different. People aren't gonna come for you in that way. So let's be clear. Let's bring some balance to that. But anyway, you were saying.
But it's also like I was saying earlier about the type of circles. When when you are in communities where all people have is like their church community, there's this social stratification that's set up in the churches and different stuff like that, where people feel like they're gatekeepers. And if they feel threatened by you, they leverage their control within those communities.
Yeah.
Right. And so again, this happens in small communities where people feel like the resources are limited. And when you feel insecure, you manipulate, you intimidate, you do things where, and it all has to do with you being fearful of your abilities to show up and be fully present, and really doesn't have anything to do with the other person.
Yeah. Number 2 is jealousy. I think that wraps up into the control piece. And I think that also wraps up into the identity piece. I think I heard it was a couple years ago, essentially, that we had no business being jealous of someone else if we really believe who God is, right? That
And
when
created
God,
it.
right, when God created us, what expression of God's spirit was he trying to illustrate in the earth in this time? And what you're doing is you're saying, well, whatever expression that I was supposed to be, right, isn't needed, but that expression over there is better, right? Like you're literally discrediting the time and the talent and the power and the God in you when we become jealous of someone else. So kind of pointing back to the identity piece, I think we really have to spend some time with ourselves, spend some time with God, and ask God to simply show us, who am I? What am I called to do? Show me my uniqueness. Show me what I am doing that no one else is doing.
I do want to highlight, as a mental health professional, what you just said about, when you get to a place where you feel like you would be better off being someone else, that's when you get into that self-harming space where you have this thwarted belongingness, where you don't feel like you fit in and you can't find a sense of belonging anywhere, and you see other people and their life and you feel like you should be like them, or you would be better if you were like them, and you literally come to despise yourself and your existence. That's a slap in the face to God. You are telling God, I know better than you. I don't deserve to be alive, which is why you have, and people, that is the space that people literally get to when they try to take themselves out. And so this insecurity it's a slippery slope. People ask me all the time when people complete suicide, like, oh, this person seemingly had support, or they had this, or they had that. And I'm like, all it takes is a low moment. You've been socialized to 50-11 ways to kill yourself through mass media and popular culture from the time that you could see anything. So it's not hard to make an attempt, which is why so many people do it, because we're constantly inundated with the idea that we aren't enough and we should ascribe to some insatiable standard. That's how you know that it's fleshy. The flesh is never satisfied. It's this insatiable standard that is always critiquing, that's always going to say, you're not this, you're not that. Oh, you got that now where you're not this. Oh, you got that now where you're not this. Oh, yep, not quite. You're not there yet. Oh, no, you're not. No. And then you completely disfigured your face like Michael Jackson or Kim, Lil Kim or somebody, where all these people who are doing all of these different things. And it's like, nope.
And just to, again, point back to how this is cyclical, like imagine someone that is going down that slippery slope and then they have an encounter with someone that's projecting. You're pushing them further down that slippery slope.
Yes. And it's the clash of the insecurities.
It's cyclical. It's cyclical. Because what happens is you believe that you just fed off of her or his insecurities because you noticed their spirit shift. You noticed the attention in the room shift, or you got the power that you desired by sashaying across the room or doing whatever you want to do. And now this person continues to revert back, continues to go deeper and deeper and deeper inside themselves down that slippery slope.
Or if you struggle with people pleasing, I went through a period where my response to people projecting their insecurities was to try to serve and to overextend myself so that they wouldn't feel threatened by me, so that they wouldn't mishandle or mistreat me. And so I was allowing myself to be taken advantage of and exploited in situations where I shouldn't have been, all because I was trying not to be mishandled and exploited, or, having people project their stuff onto me. And I know that a lot of people struggle with that. It's the difference between, again, being conflict avoidant and a conflict minimizer. Sometimes I'm thinking like, I need to be in this space, but I don't need for people to feel threatened by me because I'm in this space, because I'm harmless. You know, I reposted a meme this week that said something along the lines of, you know, like, flex on who? God, child, please. The way that God has shown up and shown out in my life, I am willing to, I wouldn't dare flex on anybody, but I'm willing to show you how to do everything that I do and get everything that I got, because I'm that type of person. I'm a sharer. But when you have people who are committed to holding on to their insecurities, they want to control the knowledge. They don't want to share the knowledge. They don't want to share the resources. They don't want to share anything. They want to be the gatekeepers, and they want to shut you out when they feel threatened, because they feel like they're going to be eliminated if you are let in.
And even, it's unfortunate, I don't think we realize how much our insecurities can drive us in our relationships, drive us in our desires, meaning, like, what did you say? You said stun on us or flex on somebody. Like, that is driven by our insecurities. And before you know it, the only reason you want this job is so you can make enough money, so you can flex on somebody. And so you sitting up here with this 9-to-5 job that you really don't like, because you're trying to flex on somebody who really not even thinking about you, because you really ain't got no haters in the first place. Because it's all up here.
That's what you can't afford. So you can say flex on my ex and my Model X. Why do you even care? Why are you even putting this amount of energy into somebody that you're not even with, or somebody who doesn't even matter? It's just like, wait, come to yourself. I did a therapy Thursday the other week. Why do you want what you want?
Yeah.
And are you being led by your intuition and the Holy Spirit, or are you being led by your insecurities and your trauma? We got to heal. We have to heal so that we stop bleeding and projecting onto people, and stop trying to one up other people, and stop trying to discredit other people. We have to heal.
Yeah. And so I guess that's my next. I know I said I have 4, but we went through them. It was about one-upping people. It was about discrediting folks when we enter the room. So what do we do then? Like, once we, like, if you're hearing this and you're like, oh snap, like this is me. I didn't realize the depths of being an insecure woman. I didn't realize the depths of being an insecure man. But also, before you answer that, because it just came to me, we got to realize oftentimes too, we raise insecure women, raise insecure girls, and raise insecure boys. We have them put too much energy on the wrong things.
Absolutely.
We have conversations with our children, and we say comments like that, like, oh, you gonna look better than the rest of them. And it's like you look the best out of all of them. And I get, you want to boost the confidence of your child, and you want your child to feel insecure. But we have to be aware of these things. And I say this because I work with teen girls, and I see it. I hear the mean girl stories. I know some of the mean girls, and I talk to them. We're having a conversation on sisterhood. And to hear some of these stories that some of these girls experience, and you talk about what they have access to and what they want, some things we weren't even thinking about at our age. So I preface that with, what then is the solution?
That's a very complicated, it's a variety of things. You know, we are still dealing with the legacy of slavery, where people are functioning in survival mode, and we are also still in a very misogynistic culture where women are not safe. And so, instead of teaching boys not to harm women, we body shame girls and tell them to cover their body. You're being fast. You can't wear that, or you shouldn't wear that. You getting too thick. You looking too grown. You must be having sex. You know, these type of things were handed down from generation to generation to generation. And so it takes it's a healing journey that takes therapy, honestly, because you really have to unlearn a lot of the things that you were indoctrinated with, that were handed down from generation to generation. It's harmful for me to tell my daughter that she can't wear certain things, or that she needs to cover up her butt, because you don't want men looking at her. But she doesn't understand that as a protective measure. She's understanding that now she has to be conscious of her booty.
Mm-hmm.
Now she has to be conscious of carrying the weight of men's perversive and perversion, their perversive nature. So it really takes some unlearning and some relearning of healthy communication styles, and some acknowledgement, right? Parents like blanket immunity because of the sacrifices that they've made, and they don't want to accept responsibility for the harm and the trauma that they caused in the name of attempting to protect or doing the best that they could. Both things are true. And so sometimes it's just the acknowledgement of, you know what, baby, I was coming from a place of protection, and I didn't say the right things. My mom just said that to me, like, I don't know, 2 months ago or so. She was just, I was standing in the kitchen and she was like, I won't say that I was the best, but I was just trying to protect you from having some of the experiences that I had. And I know that there are some things that I said and did that, weren't the right things to do. And this is my adoptive mother saying this to me at the time, which I was very appreciative to hear her say that. But my response to her was, you were doing the best that you could. I extended her grace, right?
Yeah.
So we have to extend our parents grace, but we also have to take responsibility for our own healing and unlearning this stuff for ourselves. We can't continue to blame back and forth like, oh, this didn't happen. I didn't have this. I didn't have these parents. I'm here to acknowledge those things for you. We acknowledge that you didn't have what you need. We also are acknowledging that you perpetuating and repeating those things that were taught to you, or it's not working for you. And so you have to actually be committed to the change process. Most people would rather fight the devil that they know than to walk into the unfamiliar. And so people don't like change, especially when you have a culture that supports
Paul, I need you to
fighting the devil that you know.
Listen, exactly. I need you, because I think that's what hinders us in everything. Mm-hmm. Because the internal work that's required to get to the heart of what we're talking about today is us addressing us, right? The things that we don't Absolutely. Know, the unknown. But it's so much easier to point the finger at the person I can see, at the thing I can see, the thing I'm familiar with. And what this looks like is like you said, I'm blaming my mama. I'm blaming that girl that walked into the room. And it simply feels better because I don't have to take responsibility for my actions or for my emotions. And I also can continue to avoid some of that soul work that is difficult. It is one of the hardest things to do, is to own your stuff and also realize that you were possibly one of the main characters in your, I don't want to say demise, but in a lot of the issues that you had and you continue to have.
And you use your adverse experiences to endorse your bad behavior.
Yeah.
And so there has to become a point in time where you accept responsibility for unlearning this stuff and having hard conversations. Now, let me be very clear. You don't always have a safe space to do that. This is why therapy is so important, right? Yeah. I have a therapist, but there's a lot of stuff that Cameo and I work through over the phone and FaceTime and in person with each other, where we're just, sometimes the raw come out and it's just like, oh, friend, and we process through on both sides of the table.
I remember when you, I don't know what it was. I said something and you were like, that's half your damn problem in the first place. I was like, well, excuse me. I wasn't ready, but okay. Okay.
You was doing my friend was what you was doing.
Okay.
Oh man, but like, and that wasn't even like you know, that wasn't even anything grandiose, but we've had some very, very hard and tough conversations between us too, where we're both just on the journey and going through, or where because we talk to each other so much, there will be a sore spot that'll come up where I'll just be like, I didn't know I was tender there. Yeah, I had to work through that.
And so I know this is, it sounds very cliche in terms of everything that we've been saying, but I think at the heart of this is go to therapy.
Take your butt to therapy. Therapist yesterday.
Get a therapist. If you're gonna have one, talk. Make note of these little twin, like pay attention to your spirit. I mean, get a therapist, pay attention to your spirit. When something is off, why does that thing irritate you? This is why I push so hard with my friends, with my family, even with my girls, right? Girls I'm connected to. You have to be honest. You have to be ridiculously honest with yourself and really, because if I sit in a therapy session, right, I'm not even aware of these feelings that's happening. And I'm just continuing to point the finger at her. Like, I don't even want to acknowledge that I don't like her, right? I can't even get to the root of it. I can't get to the root of the reason I don't like her is because she makes me feel insecure. And the reason I feel insecure is because I don't know who I am. And I don't know who I am because I spent like, we can't, like, you have to start with that smallest bit of honesty.
And people just aren't willing to be honest. And let me also be clear, you know, sometimes the insecurity is from a repressed memory and you don't even know why you're insecure. You don't even know why you're triggered. And then it takes you all the way back to something because you may not have the space, the psychological safety, the safe place to unpack or process and even get to why you're being triggered. We just go on from the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. And we just took the word of somebody that we deemed as a reliable source and we held on to that. And so we may have some biases and some behaviors that aren't even connected to things that align with our core. And we may have sabotaged ourselves in some ways. There's that. There's so many things to unpack.
And let us not forget, and I know I said this at the top, but I just want to reiterate it. We live in a society, right? We are literally, while we're trying to work through all of this, we're yet still in a society that affirms that competition is right, that affirms that you have to be better than the next, that affirms your insecurities. And so while you're trying to work out of this, and you may be going to 1 or 2 sessions, you know, a month or 1 session a week or whatever it is, you have those 6 other days, those 24 other hours or 23 other hours each day that's telling you the opposite of what you're. So this is not an easy feat. Like, you literally have to attempt to unpack it every single day. And it's little things you can do. And I know this is simple, but I started doing this not too long ago. But when we are on social media, I begin to curate my feed to people that look like me. From my hair type to the shape of my nose, my head, my body. Because until you get that thing together, you're going to unconsciously or very consciously compare yourself to something that you're not supposed to be comparing yourself to.
Absolutely. I've always curated my feeds. You know, I was out with a group of Black women entrepreneurs over the weekend. And, you know, that we were doing the whole follow each other on social media. And like, I was in there like, you know, I can follow your businesses from my business page. Depending on what you post or what I don't want to see any of that in my feed. Like, I have a very because if I find myself scrolling, I want to be inspired. I want to be encouraged. And for the most part, if I find I want to laugh, because I'm going to laugh. So, you know, I don't watch stuff that is deprecating to my character or to who I am as a person or as a woman. I don't watch very misogynistic stuff. I don't follow people who, you know, are very nipped and tucked and, you know what I mean, whatever else. True indeed. I like looking nice, and that's fine. But I'm also gonna hop on social media with a clear face. And if I want to be on there like that, I will, and I want to feel okay. I don't want to feel like I have to be on all the time, but I also understand that I am a professional. So you do have to curate your experience and watch what you are hearing and what you are listening to. And if those messages align with who you are at your core, or if those messages are causing you to feel more and more insecure about yourself and think that you don't belong, you aren't good enough, you don't look the part, you don't, oh, I need to get this, or I need to do this, or I need to do all of these different things in order for me to feel like I belong to be in this space. Because that's what it comes down to. Do you belong to be here? Do you look the part? Because you don't look like you belong here. And so this may cost you your relationships. That's even more incentive for you to stick with the devil, you know, because nobody wants to be out here, you know, not in a relationship with their family members, being rejected by their family members because you no longer ascribe to participating in cycles of jealousy and insecurity and projected rage and blame shaming and attack culture and competition.
Girl, I know you're talking about families, but also communities too, right? If you belong to a church community, or even if you belong to a certain work culture and you don't subscribe to things that aren't helpful for you anymore, you're going to get rejected. You are going to get othered just by nature of how established organizations work. If you don't feed this beast, then you know
the beast will spit you out.
And while we're talking about what you're going to lose, but I think the real focus here is what then will you gain? What then will you gain? I know for a fact you will gain healing. You will gain freedom. You said you will gain peace. And I know we think about a lot of these other things just to bring us back and bring us in. I think those three things, and I know we talk about happiness and joy, but I think above all else, peace, freedom, and healing is it. Right? Peace.
It really is.
That is it. Because you can be happy one day and sad the next. But peace can be present in all those spaces, right?
Absolutely.
You can be happy one day, sad the next, and need healing or be healed.
Listen, right? Am I sad that person isn't in my life? Yeah. Am I bothered by it? Yeah. Do I have peace, baby?
Listen.
I got peace. I got joy. I am very happy. And I only have instances because it's just like it doesn't make sense that this person isn't a part of my life, but that's their choice. They can choose to stay there. I'm not.
Yeah. And then I say freedom, because I think freedom is something that I don't know if we can really explain, right? I think we're bound by a lot of things we necessarily can't see. We're bound by fear.
Absolutely.
We're bound by other people's perceptions. Yes. We're bound by shame. We're bound by guilt. We're bound by the idea of who I think I'm supposed to be, right? Mm-hmm. Or the idea of who someone I respect thinks I'm supposed to be. We're bound by all these things, but once those things are loosed, once you are like, that is the life you are supposed to live.
Absolutely.
That life is a thing that produces you. That you know what that song? What's that song? The world didn't give it, so the world can't take it away. Right. And so I like you get now what they were talking about. This freedom, baby, you ain't get that to me. You didn't like you can't take that because it's here and it's here. It's in your spirit. And so I know insecurity. I know we talk about insecurities a lot, but there is so many layers to it. And on the other side of those layers, right? When we really get to the heart of the thing, when we really talk about going to therapy and finding you a good therapist, I'm gonna let Danny talk about that on another. Go find Danny on social media, because you can have a not so good therapist, but that doesn't mean to end your therapy session, or your therapist can just not be a good fit for you. I think Danny is the best therapist in the world. But I just want to say,
thank you, friend.
Y'all heard it here first. So when you see her on Bravo or something like that,
you see me on these billboards. When you see me in these Disney movies.
Listen. So, but those freedom, peace, healing. That's it.
That's it.
That's it. That's it. So, as always, make sure you're following us on social media. Also, you can head to the website to make sure you can get updates anytime there is a show. We also have a text we can send out. So if you want to hear from me when we got a text, I'll send you a text. And that's all we have. So thank you so much for listening to the Good Girl Podcast, and have a great day, a great week. Woo, woo.